Hi guys, this is Chrissy Jones, Ann Arbor chapter leader for No GMO for Michigan and organizer for March Against Monsanto here in Ann Arbor. We're at Liberty Square Plaza in Ann Arbor on May 23rd, 2015 at our third annual March Against Monsanto. We're here today to protest the corporate overtaking of our government and how they're poisoning us systematically. We hope to bring awareness to GMOs and help rid our country of these poisons. Please share this video on Facebook and have a wonderful time at your marches today. Thank you all.
Hi guys, this is Nick from March Against Monsanto and althealthworks.com. Today we're out here in beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan for the March Against Monsanto 2015. We're going to be marching to spread the word about genetically modified organisms and the health and environmental problems that they cause. This is a march that's held worldwide in over 400 cities, and there's over 2 million people that march every year in May. And we're just going to be spreading the word. We're just going to be telling people to buy organic and dump GMOs. And I'd appreciate it if you check out March Against Monsanto on Facebook and also Alt Health Works on Facebook, and share this video. Thanks.
Nick, tell them what a GMO is.
A GMO is a crop or a other organism that has had genes inserted into it from a lab technician by Monsanto or other companies, and basically this is something that would not occur in nature. It's completely different from hybrids or breeding in the field, and there's basically the #1 funder of all these studies is Monsanto themselves. So this is something we have to unite against and check out.
To GMOs, the people say no. 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 To GMOs,
My name is Chrissy Jones, and I'm the Ann Arbor chapter leader for No GMO for Michigan and the organizer for the third annual March Against Monsanto. First, I want to thank all the volunteers that helped make this happen. Thank you to Kelly George for always taking care of our flyers, our pamphlets, our graphic designs, and all things printed for free. Thank you. Thank you to Sarah Kaczynski and Olivia Fry for running our children's station. The kids are our future, and for them to be educated is invaluable. And thank you to Leah French, who has been my right-hand woman for the whole planning process. I would have went insane without her. Woo, Leah! My biggest thanks goes out to all of you. Whether you've been to every action in the area, like some have, specifically Noel Chap over there, he's been to every single thing, every single meeting. He went to DC, he's at everything. And thank you for all of you guys that do that. But even if this is your first march, we appreciate each and every one of you. Because of you, we will beat this. When I met a lot of you in 2013, most people did not know what GMOs were. They didn't know who Monsanto was and Bayer was. And Bayer was just a company that made aspirin. Today, GMOs are in the mainstream. The majority of people I've talked to know who Monsanto is. We are making a difference. Yep. Woo! For those who don't yet know, GMO stands for genetically modified organism. What this means is scientists in a lab take genes from one species and splice it with the genes of an unrelated species to create different traits never seen in nature. This is much different than selective breeding. Many of the crops we eat have been made through selective breeding, but those occur in nature, and all genes are from the same species. Much different than transgenics. Monsanto would have you think they're making crops bigger, drought resistant, more nutritional, but that is an outright lie. 95% of the GM crops planted are genetically modified to have one of two traits: pesticide producing or the ability to withstand the direct spraying of dangerous herbicides. These aren't favorable traits for consumers. These are only favorable to the chemical companies that make them and the cheap farmers who have been subsidized to grow them. The herbicide these crops are modified to be sprayed with? Monsanto's own Roundup. Isn't that clever? Make the seed and make the chemical it's sprayed with. This business model has taken Monsanto from an $800 million a year business to a $14 billion a year company in less than 20 years. Monsanto didn't start making our food until 1996. Before that, they were the famous makers of Agent Orange, which killed hundreds of thousands and have injured millions since then. They produced DDT, a widely used pesticide that was deemed safe by scientists back in the 60s until its ban in the 80s, when it was found to be carcinogenic and detrimental to our environment. They gave us PCBs in the 1920s. It wasn't until 1979 that the U.S. was forced to admit they were cancer-causing and ban them. Do you guys see a pattern? A lot of Monsanto products that science once said was safe has been banned after decades of use because of the overwhelming evidence that these products cause irreversible harm. GMOs will be another of these products. The safety of GM crops are questionable at best. No long-term study to determine the impacts on human health and the environment has ever been done. I recently debated a GMO scientist on Fox 2's Let It Rip. And guess what, guys? We won. And he admitted the typical studies are done for 90 days. 90 days! 90 days to determine if the food we eat every day and feed our children is safe. The few studies that have been done longer, 120 days, show them to cause infertility, autoimmune diseases, organ disease, and cancer. But Monsanto rejects these studies and instructs the FDA to do the same. Oh, and that scientist I debated? He works at MSU, which recently received a $3 million grant from Monsanto. How many people here knew someone with cancer 20 years ago? How many people here now know someone with cancer? I'm sorry to say that I'm now one of those people. I was diagnosed this last year with breast cancer at 25 years old because I lived in Ohio next to a GM cornfield, and I 100% believe that's what it was. But I am currently in remission right now thanks to the use of cannabis oil. No chemo, no radiation. Now, how many people here know a child with cancer? That gave me chills. That's devastating. What changed from 20 years ago to today? The food and the amount of dangerous chemicals we use. It doesn't just affect humans. There has been over a 50% decrease in honeybees in the last decade. Not to mention a huge decline in monarch butterflies. Both insects are detrimental to our environment. 1 in every 3 bites of food you take has been pollinated by a honeybee. We have to stop this before we lose them all. Without pollination, we don't have crops. Without crops, we don't have food. And it's not just Monsanto. It's Syngenta, it's Dow, it's DuPont, it's Bayer. It's all of these chemical companies that are controlling our food and producing toxins that are sprayed everywhere in our country. It doesn't stop there. Our EPA and FDA allow these things to happen, not because they care about citizens and think these products are safe, but because the regulatory agencies tasked with ensuring the safety of our food and environment is ran by the same people who make GMOs. Why is former exec for Monsanto, Michael Taylor, in charge of food safety at the FDA? Why is Clarence Thomas, a former lawyer for Monsanto, on the Supreme Court deciding cases that involve the company he once represented? Why? Because these chemical companies control our government. position on GMOs. Most countries label, while a lot of them just outright ban them. Woo! If there isn't a problem with them, then why has over 60 countries taken a stand against them? It may seem like these companies are just too big to defeat, but look at what we've done in only a few years. We've gotten over 24 companies to remove GMOs and hundreds to go non-GMO project verified. We did that. We got Chipotle and Ben and Jerry's, not only to completely remove them, but to take a public stance on the issue. We did that. We got Meijer and Kroger and even the devil company Walmart to establish an organic line of groceries we can better afford. We did that. We have mainstream news and TV shows talking about it. 2 states have passed labeling bills with more on the way. Mexico has banned GMO corn. I can go to a gas station on the way to events like this and get a GMO-free refreshment. We did that. Roundup has been declared by the World Health Organization to be a probable carcinogen. And this has all happened since 2013, since we first marched here. You have power. You have a voice. We have to ramp up our efforts and continue this trend. Continue voting with your dollars. That means do not buy GMO products. Buy organic when possible. This hurts them in the only place they feel it, their pocketbooks. When companies see that more people want GMO-free, they take out the GMOs. Call and email your legislators often. Try to meet with them. Let them know their constituents demand action. Keep targeting major brands. Post on their Facebook and Twitter. Email them and boycott. Grow your own crops using heirloom seeds and no pesticides. But most importantly, help to educate. Tell your family, your neighbor, your child's teacher, everyone you come in contact with. Just tell them to simply Google 3 letters, GMO. And have you ever seen the results page? It's all anti. So let them do their own research. The more people we have standing against this, the better chance we have at eliminating these poisons from our world forever. I want to end with what we want to accomplish in the next year. We want a bill proposed in Michigan to label GMOs. Other states are doing it. We want different counties and cities to enact glyphosate bans or Roundup bans like other cities have done. We can't accomplish this without you. Please volunteer when you can and donate what you can to help us with this mission. We don't have a staff of 100 people or a multi-million-dollar budget to work with. We are community members, moms, dads, students, doctors, farmers that come together to enact positive change. Please join nurses. Please join us and help us change the world. A co-organizer, and she, upon learning about GMOs and everything that's going on in our food system, has decided to go to school to become a holistic nutritionist. So not only is she 100% informed, but she is qualified to inform you all. So I'll let her do the talking.
This is my first time, so bear with me. By a show of hands, who here has heard of the Codex Alimentarius or knows what it is? Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to see at least that many hands. The Codex Alimentarius, are you familiar?
Act like you're yelling.
All right. If you ask the FAO, or the Food and Agriculture Organization, it will tell you the Codex Alimentarius Commission was born of necessity, that its carefully crafted statutes and rules of procedure ensure it pursues clearly defined objectives in a disciplined, dispassionate, and scientific way. If you ask the World Health Organization, it says the Codex Alimentarius Commission is a joint intergovernmental body which has worked since 1963 to create harmonized international food standards to protect the health of consumers and ensure fair trade practices.
Liars.
If you ask Wikipedia, it will tell you that the Codex is a collection of internationally recognized guidelines and other recommendations relating to foods, food production, and food safety.
Liars.
So far, it all sounds
Liars.
really good, doesn't it?
Liars.
Well, but what you really should be asking is, if it is so good, why haven't I ever heard of it?
Is it Kodak? Is it camera?
No, you're gonna find out. That's what I thought, and that's why I went digging for more information. It didn't take me too long before I got really concerned, and that's why I'm here to tell you about it. Literally translated, Codex Alimentarius means the food code, or book of food. It was established by the FAO in November of 1961, and by June of 1962, the World Health Organization was on board. The first meeting was held in Rome a little more than a year later in 1963. The original intention was to ensure that fair practices in the international food trade in order to protect the health of consumers, as I said. The Codex Alimentarius Commission sets the standards for food, food labeling, food hygiene, food additives, contaminants, pesticide residues, and procedures in determining the safety of food and biotechnology. It also sets the standards for inspection and certification of imported and exported foods. There are currently 186 members and 230 observers. Members being member countries, countries who participate in the practice of standards set by the Commission. Observers being people or organizations that attend meetings to observe and interact. Now, I find it very interesting that with over 180 member countries, the Codex is published in only 6 languages. The Codex standards are set for almost all foods. Membership in the Codex isn't required, but since the World Trade Organization uses Codex standards, it makes being involved in a trade dispute impossible to win without adhering to Codex standards and policies, thus making them mandatory. And since the guidelines exist for almost all foods on the planet, the Codex affects almost everyone. The Codex's arms reach beyond food. It also sets the standards and policies for other things like vitamins and mineral supplements, health claims, organic foods, and advertising. So the primary function of the Commission is to decide what is safe for consumers around the world, and they make these decisions by consensus rather than voting. It sounds fair, but it also makes reaching a decision a lengthy and at times impossible thing to achieve. And quite unfairly, it typically uses outdated studies or criteria that support special interest groups over consumers. It's really more of a system of guidelines that are to the advantage of the world's largest food suppliers and producers. Small producers and suppliers are not supported in the process, and even small governments who disagree are often ignored. A few government delegations, like the U.S. and Canada, have more influence on a number of issues. In fact, the governmental delegates that sit on committees and task forces are not elected representatives, but bureaucrats.
Boo!
They're influenced by international non-governmental organizations, or INGOs, who attend the sessions as observers. The INGOs' influence is heavily in favor of the largest transnational corporations. So, although there are debates and opposition to some issues, most times it would seem that the decisions have already been made and contrary opinions have little to no effect. So the point I'm making is that every year meetings are held to make decisions that concern us all, and we're not even aware of them, nor are our opinions considered, and our best interests are essentially squandered for the bottom line. One of our biggest threats is that the Commission typically sets standards for GM foods, contaminants, additives, pesticide residues, and other synthetic chemicals very low, considering them safe for human consumption, while at the same time setting tougher guidelines for things that should be considered beneficial for our health, like vitamins, minerals, organic food production. It constantly degrades the value of these things in the interest of those who benefit from global food trade. To give a few examples of things that the Commission is responsible for, deciding GM food plants are safe, trying to approve Terminator seeds for international trade, and trying to approve GM animals. The Codex is also responsible for dumbing down organic standards by approving various synthetic additives and processing aids in organic foods, loosening the guidelines on labels which may allow them to may allow hidden or non-organic ingredients, and loosening the guidelines in the restriction of irradiation in organic foods.
Like natural flavors. Look at what's in the natural flavors. Call them up.
It's horrible.
They hide it all.
It's also
That's true.
responsible for the mixed messages we all receive about the safety and effectiveness of supplements. It sets the maximum daily dosage extremely low using really flawed risk assessment methods and categorizes some nutrients as drugs. It disallows any health claims for supplements. The Codex has approved 300 food additives without any consideration for long-term health effects. It allows the residue of almost 3,300 pesticides in our food without any consideration for long-term health effects. I could go on and into greater detail, but I'll try to move on to what it is we as concerned citizens can do. First, educate yourselves. Find reliable sources because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Misinformation can hurt the cause. If you approach your elected representatives with any misinformation, it can and will be disregarded. Next, approach your elected representatives. Address your concerns about the Codex's support for hazardous food technologies, such as GMOs, chemical additives, pesticides, irradiation, and the global trade of simplified, nutritionally inadequate food. Address your concern for the Codex's lack of support for community-based farming and high-quality foods, the agricultural self-sufficiency of poor countries. Address your concerns for the Codex's constant watering down of organic principles and their attempts to limit benefits of nutrients and supplements, their smoke-screening attempts at educating the public on healthy eating and nutritional supplementation. Write or meet with your elected representatives and make sure they work on your behalf to influence your government. Check the Codex websites for the names and addresses of the Codex delegation. They are publicly available in the annual reports of the Codex committee meetings. Go ahead. Okay. Just a tad bit more. Continue to do things like we're doing now. So that we can influence the laws on GMOs, food additives, food safety, pesticide residue, organic farming, food supplements, and health claims that could influence the development of the Codex's guidelines and standards. Like Chrissy says, always vote with your dollars. Don't buy or eat processed foods, GM foods, or foods containing food additives. Whenever possible, buy soul foods. That's seasonal, organic, unprocessed, and local. Stay informed and educate yourselves. I want to close with a quote from Thomas Jefferson. If people let the government decide what foods they eat and what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in as sorry a state as are the souls of those who live under tyranny.
Wow.
You tell it.
What do you call a GMO noodle? An impasta. By Agent Orange. Again, Courtney has never seen war, but her illnesses have, and that is disgusting. So I'll let her tell you all about it. Courtney Clausen.
First, by telling you a story, a true horror story. From 1962 to 1971, the U.S. military poisoned good people. Anyone and everything in their path. I'm sorry, you guys, and I'm going to apologize one last time if I cry. I can't help it. Ranchan was a military operation. Ranchan was a military operation during the Vietnam War that was part of the herbicidal warfare called Operation Trail Dust. Ranchan involved spraying an estimated 20 million U.S. herbicides over rural areas of Vietnam in an attempt to deprive the Viet Cong of cover and food. The herbicides were sprayed by the U.S. Air Force flying C-123s using the call sign Hades. I find that a proper name considering how many children in Vietnam veterans are living in their own personal hell. Nearly 20,000 sorties were flown in about a decade. The Vietnam government estimates that 400,000 people were killed or maimed, and 500,000 children in Vietnam were born with birth defects.
Still happening every
That's
day.
just in Vietnam. As a result of spraying what the Americans called the rainbow herbicides. There were lots of chemicals used in Vietnam, but the most widely used was Agent Orange. It is a mixture of two herbicides, a 50-50 mixture of 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T. It was used at a crazy concentration, 50 times the normal rate for agricultural use. 2,4-D, the chemical compound found in Agent Orange, is also found in Monsanto's chemical Roundup. Roundup also contains glyphosate. I'm going to read from my Moms Across America pamphlet. I'm the leader for Moms Across America, and I just want to read this part of it, you guys. What is a GMO? A GMO is a genetically modified organism developed in a lab where the DNA of one species is injected into the DNA of a completely unrelated species. GMOs are the result of engineered viral infection, not a hybrid development. GMOs in our food means we are eating foreign proteins with unforeseeable results. Herbicide-tolerant GMOs are genetically engineered to withstand pesticides, therefore highly toxic chemicals are sprayed repeatedly on our food during growing and are absorbed through the entire plant and cannot be washed off. HT GMOs include corn, soy, sugar beets, canola, cottonseed oil, Hawaiian papaya, some yellow squash, and zucchini, and probably more now. This was last year. Bacillus thuringiensis, and if someone wants to tell me how that's said, I'll let you. BT GMOs are genetically engineered to produce their own pesticide in every cell of the plant, and therefore registered by the EPA as a pesticide. When a bug eats the plant, it causes the bug's stomach to explode. So seeds are classified as pesticide with the EPA. That's pathetic. They just added soy to that list I read this week, and that's crazy. So we'll talk more about soy in a minute. Most GMOs are genetically engineered to withstand glyphosate. Glyphosate is a patented antibiotic. It destroys beneficial gut bacteria, which makes up 70% of our immune system. Without our gut bacteria, we cannot produce tryptophan or serotonin, necessary to prevent diabetes, depression, bipolar, obesity, and more. And glyphosate is an endocrine disruptor. It can cause birth defects, miscarriages, infant death, infertility, sterility, and cell damage. Papers show that glyphosate breaks down the blood-brain barrier, allowing toxins in the brain, which could be linked to autism. It also impairs the liver's ability to detox and lead to heart conditions. 160 foods are allowed by the EPA to have levels of glyphosate far above the level shown to destroy gut bacteria.
Glyphosate is a cheerleader.
Yeah.
If your local municipality or your neighbor or your school district is using Roundup, do not just sit down and allow them to do it. Say something and ask them to stop. Go to your local city council meetings, give them hell. If they don't do anything, keep going back. The more they see it on the agenda, people see it in the minutes, they will get a point. Someone will finally listen. Be very persistent. consistent. If your school district is using Roundup, make even a bigger stink, and I mean stand outside of your school with signs protesting the fact that they're using Roundup and the fact that they serve your children GMOs in school.
Hey, Mommy.
This is so unacceptable. If your neighbor's using Roundup, definitely ask them to stop. The directions on the container must be followed to a T. So, if there are federal guidelines on that bottle. If they are misusing the chemicals, call the Michigan Department of Agriculture. So, I mean, if they don't have gloves on, call the Michigan Department of Agriculture. If they don't have their goggles on when they're spraying, call the Michigan Department of Agriculture. If they don't have their boots on, you call the Michigan Department of Agriculture. If they're not holding their sprayer close enough to the ground, call the Michigan Department of Agriculture. I did that. My neighbor was using her Roundup on my fence line. Every time she used it, I'm inside my house, sicker than a dog, throwing up for days on end sometimes. I asked her to stop. She literally laughed at me. I said, no. Get the smirk off your face. I don't appreciate you thinking my health issues as a laughing matter. So I called the only people that would help me. I called everybody in Genesee County. Sorry, ma'am, there's really nothing we can do about it. Well, you know what? The Michigan Department of Agriculture was at my house the next day. And I said, look, good, I don't want to cause World War III here, but I do want her to stop. So he went over and had a talk with her. Apparently a good one. She still talks to me. And she stopped using her Roundup on my fence line. So 15 months ago, new topic. 15 months ago, I stopped taking all of my medications except for morphine. Some of you know from the 2 years ago, my last speech last year was like the worst thing known to man, in my opinion. Other people said, oh, whatever. They were being nice. Okay, it was awful. I was coming off of my medication. It was like the most embarrassing moment of my life, practically. So, I've been on cannabis oil.
Yeah.
Woo! Yes, cannabis oil. Thank you. For 15 months. And cannabis oil. Woo! So I've been off of my medication for 15 months. Prior to that, 3 months ago even, I was having to be in the worst pain of my life for a week and a half or so because I was out of medicine. I just ran out, I take too much, it didn't work. The cannabis oil has allowed me to have enough medicine to last me. For the month, I don't have to be in as much pain as I was, and I'm just glad those chemicals are out of my system. Yeah. So, legal now in Michigan, go get your card, get the cannabis oil, and get off Bayer and Dow's medications. My daughter, Sydney here, she's 11 years old. She just turned 11. I got real sick when she was like 2.5, and she's never seen me normal, like a normal human. Because I'm not normal, trust that. But, you know, I throw up every day. I cry and scream in pain, literally. My kids watch it every day for my life, practically. Well, we went to Mexico on vacation for a week. And, I was like, wow, I can't even believe it. I never threw one meal up. I ate all the street food they had to offer. And I digested my meals. I was so happy. I wanted to move there immediately. I'm so heartbroken, literally, that I had to come back to this house. My daughter got to see me for a week, like a human. So our food here is tainted, people. I buy organic food, and I only buy organic food. And when I get that sick from organic food, we got problems. There's no way in hell that food's organic. Not all of it, but I'm telling you. I don't know why drift lies people's pockets. But grow your own food. That's one of my points. Grow your food. demanded a list of all the ingredients that they were serving the kids at my daughter's school. I was then the most hated woman in fact. Remain that way. That's fine. I'll speak the truth. You can hate me. I don't care. The list was incomplete. They thought they were giving me the healthy list. Let me tell you, it's shocking that soy was in practically every single ingredient in those foods. Why the heck do you have to put soy in ketchup? Why do you have to put soy in a chicken tender? Soy in everything. Soy causes early childhood puberty. I said to the principal, how do you feel knowing that every single thing you're serving those kids is contributing to early childhood puberty? You're like wanting kids to just start having sex early and stuff. Like, think about it. Think about it. Oh. So, go to your schools. I stand outside in front of my schools with signs that say the cooks don't cook. They don't cook one thing at my daughter's school. They get it out of a package. They don't even put a ham sandwich together. It comes out of the freezer. Boom, ham sandwich. It's a disgrace. I stand out there with my signs all alone sometimes, and it doesn't even matter because people take notice. People don't even know what a GMO is still, and I'm educating people. They want me to stop, and I'll never stop. This is the last thing I want to tell you guys, and this is the most important thing, and I did it. You can do it too. It can be done. You have to be methodical. You have to think it through. You have to go, what am I going to say? So, I have homework for all of you. And next year, when we meet here, I want you to have done this homework and say, oh my God, I brought it. Bring me the note. We want to see your doctor's note. I got a doctor's note from my daughter's pediatrician saying that she cannot have a GMO served at school. They still do it. They're not going to listen. They do serve it to her still. The note says it causes ADHD. There's chemicals in the food. The high fructose corn syrup. It went on and on and on. I wish I would have brought a copy of it to show you people. Yes, that's a good idea. What I did is I said, okay, my daughter's on summer break. She only eats organic food. All right, so her summer vacation went well, doctor. She listened so well, doctor. She went to bed and didn't have problems sleeping, doctor. Oh. Doctor, October's here. You know what? I'm so over it. My daughter, all of a sudden, she's back to sleepwalking, and she really was. My daughter is just like, her attention span is just so nil. I said it was the food. And he went with it, and he wrote a note. So you can do that too. If enough people get a doctor's note in your school district, they'll just plain old have to stop serving the GMOs. It can be done. Perfect.
So yeah, thank you everybody for coming out. This movement has evolved into something that I think it kind of almost, I was going to say it runs itself almost, because we have so many people in so many countries that are just so into this and so into getting organic, clean food again, that there's going to be a lot of surprises popping up and a lot of amazing things happening that will help our cause without us even having to do anything. So you guys are the ones who help it make that happen and help that scenario come true. So give yourselves a hand for that.
Hoorah, hoorah, baby, hoorah, hoorah.
And so yeah, Chrissy already told you all the scientific details, but basically one thing you should know is that whenever somebody says there's 2,000 studies on GMO saying they're safe and all this propaganda that they pay tens of millions of dollars for, you need to tell them that the vast majority of these studies are funded by companies and labs with ties to Monsanto. They are buying science. It's
Fox watching the hen house.
They're buying fake science to try and tell you that these things are safe. And the bottom line is that our bodies know what is healthy. Our bodies know what is good for them. And once you get yourself off the GMOs and onto organic, you'll notice the difference, and then you'll be able to tell everybody yourself. So, round of applause for buying organic whenever you can. And I promised I'd keep it short, so I just want to leave you with one piece of inspiration. There's a study that came out of a top university in New York City, or New York State, and they basically said that whenever a society holds an unshakable belief that something is true, whenever 10% of the society holds that belief, it will ultimately become the belief of the entire society. So we're almost there, we're almost at that 10%, so just keep spreading awareness, keep posting on Facebook, keep telling your local media, post on their Facebook wall, hold them accountable for telling these lies and accepting these millions of dollars to basically be a corporate mouthpiece. Don't let them do it. Thanks. Bye.
My name is Sydney. I'm 5th grade. My grandpa had boots on the ground in Vietnam. Because of that, he has a heart disease caused by Agent Orange exposure. He's had 2 heart surgeries this year. I'm scared that he's going to die soon. So this is why I think, in my opinion, that the government should stop spraying Agent Orange all over our food and modifying our seeds to be pesticides. The government standards allow GMO soy in practically everything they serve in our school lunches. And we can't even play in our parks and playgrounds without worrying about Roundup on our feet. I think all schools should have a vegetable garden so we will have more fresh veggies without preservatives and GMOs. We all need to continue going to Washington, D.C. to protest. Write their representatives and principals and tell everyone what GMOs are. When I grow up, I would want the world to be free of GMOs so my kids and family would be safe. And that is why I march against Monsanto.
Joining my team, I'm telling you, man. She's going to be speaking every March. I already got her down, guys. So, again, thank you all for coming. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are all amazing. Sydney wants to sing a song with a couple of these little girls, and then I'm going to let the megaphone go for 20 minutes or so for anybody that wants to speak.
Yeah.
Honeybees, stop Monsanto, save the bees, bring the buzz to their knees. We need our honeybees, so please help us save our bees. We love our honeybees, stop Monsanto, save the bees, bring the buzz to their knees. We need our honeybees, so please help us save our bees.
There are currently over 100 bills in 38 states to restrict our freedom to choose which vaccines we want. And as of 2 weeks ago, there is a federal bill that was introduced by a congresswoman in Florida that would mandate that every state eliminate all non-medical exemptions to every vaccine on the ACIP recommendation list. This includes annual flu shots for everybody and HPV vaccines and other vaccines that are not currently mandated for school in Michigan. So I just ask you to become aware of this issue. We are having a legislative day on June 11th. We're going to Lansing to talk to our legislators. We would love to have people join us.
Woo! Thank you.
My name is Sydney. I'm 5th grade. My grandpa had boots on the ground in Vietnam. Because of that, he has a heart disease caused by Agent Orange exposure. He's had 2 heart surgeries this year. I'm scared that he's going to die soon. So this is why I think, in my opinion, that the government should stop spraying Agent Orange all over our food and modifying our seeds to be pesticides. The government standards allow GMO soy in practically everything they serve in our school lunches. And we can't even play in our parks and playgrounds without worrying about Roundup on our feet. I think all schools should have a vegetable garden so we will have more fresh veggies without preservatives and GMOs. We all need to continue going to Washington, D.C. to protest. Write their representatives and principals and tell everyone what GMOs are. When I grow up, I would want the world to be free of GMOs so my kids and family would be safe. And that is why I march against Monsanto.
Joining my team, sing every March. I already got it down, guys. So again, thank you all for coming. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are all amazing. Sydney wants to sing a song with a couple of these little girls, and then I'm going to let the megaphone go for 20 minutes or so for anybody that wants to speak.
Yeah.
There are currently over 100 bills in 38 states to restrict our freedom to choose which vaccines we want. And as of 2 weeks ago, there is a federal bill that was introduced by a congresswoman in Florida that would mandate that every state eliminate all non-medical exemptions to every vaccine on the ACIP recommendation list. This includes annual flu shots for everybody and HPV vaccines and other vaccines that are not currently mandated for school in Michigan. So I just ask you to become aware of this issue. We are having a legislative day on June 11th. We're going to Lansing to talk to our legislators. We would love to have people join us.
Woo! Thank you.
Go.